Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode here at the Pioneers of Bitcoin podcast. Today, I would like to talk about the price action of precious metals, Bitcoin, and a recent tweet of Ray Dalio, who is a very, very successful and famous hedge fund manager, and why this tweet is quite important and why it's actually going viral. The tweet, as of recording this video, has reached 78 million views, and the content of his tweet is not new. It's just that the timing of it seems to be quite accurate. And before I go through that article, I will obviously not go through it in detail, but I will try to talk about it a little bit and break it down for you. So first things first, let's talk about what's happening with the gold price. Okay, so gold hit ultimately an all-time high in January of this year, at around 5,600 US dollars. And we are now down about 11% of that all-time high, which is quite fascinating to see because gold, if you look at its price history in the past 10 years, it has had a tremendous performance in the past 2 years. And if you actually would have researched a bit what's happening right now, you would be on the right side when it comes to gold. Obviously, gold has not outperformed Bitcoin whatsoever in the past 10 years, but relative to the stock market, it has done a tremendous job at protecting people's purchasing power. Silver had a very aggressive run as well to all-time highs. We reached a peak at $121, which is quite fascinating to see, and a dip down 35%. And Bitcoin is sitting at $67,000 or $66,900 or $800 right now, and we actually hit a low of $60,000, and this was a 53% almost drawdown from its all-time high of last year in October, which was at around $126,000. Quite depressing, but absolutely normal in Bitcoin terms. If you've been in Bitcoin for longer than 4 years or even 2 years, you know that these drawdowns are completely normal and expected. But it is quite surprising that Bitcoin is not performing as well as gold is, as it should. And we're going to talk about a little bit why that could be the case. And before we do that, I would like to show you this article. So this is the article of Ray Dalio, and this is his book. So I really recommend you read this book. His book came out a few years ago, actually, and I bought it immediately when it came out. I didn't manage to finish it completely, but I've read quite some big parts of it. And this tweet of Ray Dalio that has gone pretty much viral at almost 80 million views is from this book. So he just copied chapter 6 of this book and just pasted it and says, this is what's happening now. We are at chapter 6 of my book. And the reason why he says that is because of the events we saw in Munich at the security conference and what the leaders have called for. For example, Friedrich Merz, the Chancellor of Germany, said the world order has, as it stands today, is no longer the world order that it used to be. So basically calling for the end of the world order. And he calls this as the official end. And if you just would go to this tweet, it's a very, very long tweet because the entire chapter of his book is here. And if you ask Grok to summarize this for you, you will pretty much get the result of the big cycle ending, the debt cycle that he talks about. The 80-year big cycle is breaking apart, and he recommends that investors should protect themselves by buying gold, because at the end of these debt cycles, governments usually devalue their currency, and he's calling for that, right? And his prediction in his book, if you read his book, is that the next world leader or the next government or the next country that will take over is the country that is most dominant. And in his view, it's China. And my take on that, to be honest, is that this is not going to happen. I don't see China or the Chinese yuan to take over the dollar in the next 10 or 20 years. I don't think that's going to happen. And the reason why I think that's not going to happen is because I don't think that the Chinese government is as trustworthy as the US government has been, and as successful as the US government has been in the past 80 years, because of their policies and because of their way of governing. They're very authoritarian, and this is very anti-West, as you know. And I don't think that the world is going to trust their currency with their purchasing power. In the meantime, while this is happening, however, we will have a transition period. And this transition period will be very, very messy. And this is the message of Ray Dalio, that it's going to be messy. There's going to be war. And we see that in action. We see the US right now in big conflict with Iran. For example, in his book, he predicts that there might be a clash between the US and China and over Taiwan, which still has not unfolded, but could potentially happen, obviously. But he's not calling for this since, yesterday. He's been calling for this for a very, very long time. And calling for something like that and being right with the timing of it is extremely difficult, obviously. But we do see similarities as to what he wrote a few years ago in his book in what's happening right now. We see the world breaking apart and becoming more decentralized. We see governments becoming more independent, or wanting to be more independent and stay a little bit more selfish and less globalized. And we do see conflicts around the world, especially between the US and Iran right now. And if this escalates, this is obviously a sign of basically the last empire that has been leading the world, trying to maintain its position. And that's what Ray Dalio is basically predicting, that the previous or the existing empire that has the power will do everything in its power to maintain that power over time. And during this transition period, as the trust breaks apart, hard assets like gold are going to win, because people want to have a neutral form of money that they can trust to use to become independent and keep their purchasing power, which is absolutely right. And that's what we're seeing with the gold price and so on and so forth. So far, everything is fine. The issue that I personally have with this prediction is that what do you actually do with the gold? If I want to buy gold right now and I have a bar of $100,000, what do I do with that? How do I transport that gold with me if there's a war in the Middle East? How do I take my money with me? The answer is you can't. You cannot use gold to really protect yourself physically and geographically if you want to do that. Second, why would I use gold in a world where everything is becoming digitized and AI is basically taking over the world economy? Why would I use a brick that is thousands of years old, that is an old idea, that used to be a store of value, that solved the issue of money thousands of years ago, but was abused again and again and again and again by world governments. Why would such form of money take over again? It might for a time being, because we're conditioned to believe that gold is money, and obviously we are seeing it unfold. But if you look at the price action and the amount of money that has flown into gold in the past year or so, you will notice that this cannot be a rush to gold from individuals. The amount of money that has flown into gold must be, and we can see that and we know that, from central banks. So central banks are buying this asset because they know gold, they know that this is the reserve asset they're used to, and obviously they're not going to pick Bitcoin for that. Okay, so what's my point? My point, obviously, the price action of Bitcoin is speaking against it to solve this issue momentarily or on a short-term basis. And a lot of people called for Bitcoin to go much higher, including myself. And I have to admit, I'm always humble enough to say that sometimes I'm right, sometimes I'm wrong, and it's absolutely fine. Short-term, nobody knows where the price of any asset, including gold, is going to go. But, and this but is very important, we know without trust of anybody, if you do your own research, you know, or you will find out that the only asset that we have today that can protect you from seizure, transportation, and inflation, and the issue that we've always had with gold for transacting with it on a global scale, is Bitcoin. There is no other form of money that solves this with its fundamental properties. Solve this issue today. This is not some imagination that the crowd in Bitcoin has to fulfill in the future, and we are just projecting it into the market. This already exists, and the market does not understand this yet. And we can see that through the price action. If the market would understand that Bitcoin is a decentralized network of computers all around the world, and that the number of coins in the Bitcoin network have a hard cap supply, which makes the asset way better than any other form of money, including gold, because gold has inflation and will continue to have inflation over time, unlike Bitcoin. You will start to notice that this is an unstoppable force that only will take time for the market to understand. It's not a question of if, it's the question of when. Because the reality is, this technology already exists and it already solves this particular problem of putting your wealth into a network that no government can inflate, no government can seize or censor, no government can have any form of control that we see in any form of government issued currencies, including gold. If you own gold today, you probably own it on a screen, and you cannot take custody of it because it would be too dangerous to take custody of it, because you might lose it, because you might have it confiscated if you travel with it, and so on and so forth. So this technology already exists. The properties of Bitcoin already solve this problem fundamentally. And the only question here is, when are investors around the world going to find this out? How long will it take for people to understand that gold is not solving this problem? People like Ray Dalio, including him, as much as he understands history, he still does not understand fully what Bitcoin does. If you go back to his interviews just 2 years ago, he does believe Bitcoin has a role, but he does not understand that Bitcoin solves this problem, this very solution he sees in gold, but on a much more scalable way for everybody on the planet to be able to adopt. And that's what Bitcoin does. So in my opinion, short-term price action of Bitcoin can really be annoying, and it can really shake, and it will shake a lot of people out. A lot of people who just got into Bitcoin because they saw the number go up and they just want to make their dollars go up, they're going to sell. They're going to sell at a loss, or they're going to sell at diminished profits if they bought it somewhere at the 20,000 range or something like that. And because of its nature, because of Bitcoin's nature, and because we know that there is a limited number of tokens available, Bitcoin tokens or Bitcoin units available, and because we also know that there is a crowd of investors in this network who do understand it, who own it, and who are never going to sell it no matter the price. Because we know both of these facts, and we know that by not trusting anybody, we know it because we can see it in the network, because we can see how many coins have moved for how many years and how many coins have not moved for how many years. You can see everything in Bitcoin. It's not like the gold network that is intransparent and you have to make guesses. Everything in Bitcoin is public. You can audit it. You can see everything on chain. Because we know all of that, we know that at some point, the people who don't understand this asset are going to run out of coins. And at that point, we hit a bottom, and that's always been happening in previous bear markets. So we go up because the coins that are issued are reduced, and euphoria comes in. Everybody is interested in Bitcoin. Everybody buys it because it just goes, because they believe it just goes up forever. And then it doesn't. Then they get scared. They sell their Bitcoin, and it just keeps crashing down until from this new crowd of people who joined the network through the euphoria, a few people sit down, read, and study history and try to understand the technology and stay. And that's how you create another bottom that is higher than the previous all-time high or the previous low, if you will. And that's how the Bitcoin network actually grows. If you look at its users or number of users, number of addresses, it just keeps growing. There is absolutely no indication for, if you study what's happening right now in Bitcoin, all the technologies that are being built on Bitcoin, there's absolutely no indication to be worried about. All you see on Twitter is, yeah, what about quantum computers, and what about the Epstein files, and what about this and that? Complete nonsensical noise that is happening out there. It's so annoying. I actually stopped, like, I have almost given up on Twitter, to be honest, because it's just a bunch of bots and people with very limited knowledge that try to understand what's happening or try to explain what's happening in the market, and none of it, or almost none of it, is signal. Almost everything is just pure noise. So this is my take about the current situation. I would never sell my Bitcoin, never. I would only sell an amount that I need to spend, basically, but nothing shakes me out of this network unless there is something fundamental in the network technically that would change my mind. And there is absolutely nothing that has happened, absolutely nothing that would shake me out whatsoever. Quantum is a topic that is being discussed, which is complete nonsensical, to be honest, to even think about it today, with the probability of it becoming an issue less than 1% or less than 0.5% in the next 10 or 20 years. But it's fascinating, and obviously for people who do have the time and the understanding of Bitcoin, this is great news, because you can buy Bitcoin at a lower price of people who don't take the time to study this topic, who don't take the time to understand the debt cycles, who don't take the time to understand why Bitcoin is way better than its biggest competitor, which is gold, in my opinion. So my humble summarized opinion on the current circumstance, no matter what happens, even if there's a war, even if the market doesn't understand this asset, stay humble and stack sats. That's my opinion, to be honest with you. That's what I'm doing. That's what I suggest everybody else to do. And in the meantime, there can be assets that go up against Bitcoin and you will feel frustrated. Why didn't I buy this asset, or why didn't I buy this asset? Hodling Bitcoin is probably one of the most difficult journeys of every investor today. It's so difficult to hold it. It's a very simple concept, but it's extremely difficult to hold the asset. And it doesn't matter where it goes. If it goes up, you feel FOMO and you just feel like, I'm going to buy more, I'm going to buy more, I'm going to buy more. Or let me take profits. So that's the emotion that you get when it goes up. And then when it goes down, that very same FOMO that you had on the way up becomes your enemy, because then you feel like, oh my God, it's going to crash, it's going to go to zero. And then you're going to sell everything, right? So this greed and fear every time Bitcoin goes up and down is your biggest enemy. If you sit down, and I include myself, by the way, because everybody has these emotions. It just comes into your consciousness and you have to deal with it. But really persistent and disciplined investors are those who observe these emotions that come and go and recognize them, but not necessarily react to them. Unless there is fundamental reason, action that you need to take because of fundamental reasons. Any action that you take based on pure emotion is the wrong way to deal with the market sentiment, in my opinion. So guys, this is my take. I'm curious about your take. If you think that it's over, Bitcoin is never going to go up again, feel free to put your comments in the comment section below. And we have been working very hard at 21st Capital, just to mention that as well. We have been working very, very hard on a brand new website that you definitely need to check out. I'm going to put the link in the description, 21stcapital.com. If you are interested to get your Bitcoin secured for the long term with the same conviction that I just tried to convey to you, you should definitely upgrade your Bitcoin security, and you should definitely check out our website and how we can help you there. We have built a configurator that will that is trying to explain why or what features you will get if you do your Bitcoin security upgrade, and why it will be beneficial to hire your security from a single sig hardware wallet to a multi-sig hardware wallet. And we are there to help you on the way. So we will help you with an onboarding session or several onboarding sessions, and an ongoing service is available for subscribers who are interested to subscribe to our service to hold your Bitcoin, hopefully for the next 10 decades to come. Okay? Thank you very much for watching, everyone, and see you in the next video. Take care. Ciao.